The fluorescent lights in the lobby hummed like a bee with a hungover head. It was 12:34 a.m., the kind of hour that makes the world feel skinned thin. Everything exposed, every small sound larger than it has the right to be. I had been on my feet since 4, my feet sore under the counter, where I sold too salty popcorn and sodas to people who smiled like they were paying for someone else's story. I needed the money. My mother needed the rent. I needed to keep my job. My boss pinched the bridge of his nose and told me to clean 3 theaters. Just the usual, he said. Nobody's back there. You'll be fine. He left before I could tell him I was bone-tired. Before I could admit I was 17 and still learning how to be a person who could hold other people's safety in her hands. The theater smelled like old butter and damp carpet. The projector in Theater 12 made a soft electric thrum, a distant heartbeat beneath the red exit lights. I swept rows of popcorn into my dustpan, the kernels whispering like tiny confessions. I wiped sticky rings from armrests, felt the faint outline of someone else's night leftover wrappers, the curve of a pressed-in seat where a grown body had curled away from rain. I worked with the measured rhythm of habit. Cleaning was a kind of comfort because it let me place the world back how it belonged. The second theater was the same. More popcorn, more sticky seats, a soda cup with a lipstick stain like a tiny, embarrassed mouth. I finished both in a little over half an hour. The theater doors made a soft sigh behind me as I pushed one open into Theater 4. Air hit me that was colder than the others, that held the faint chemical tang of cleaner and something else I couldn't name. The auditorium swallowed sound. I started at the front, sweeping, then reached for the disinfectant when I heard it. A high, childlike giggle, thin and quick as breath through a keyhole. It stopped when I looked up. Nobody. I called out because that's what you do when you're alone in a place built for being full. Is anyone in here? My voice sounded small and polite inside the cavern. No answer. I told myself I was being silly, that someone had slipped out, that it was the echo of a trailer or an old recording. I wiped the first row. The giggle came again, closer, turning like a page into a cackle, something ragged at the edges. I felt my patience unspool into something colder. "Who's there?" I said. Anger steadied me where fear wanted to grow. For a second it was just sound against the carpet. Then the sound moved behind me, up the slope of the theater like a hand sliding along the back of a chair. It grew louder, an ugly chorus in the dark. I climbed the stairs. Each step was a deliberate act. 1 foot, another. The cackling rose and fell, as if an audience of unseen things followed me, tracking my heartbeat. When I reached the 10th row, it stopped, sudden and complete, like the end of a reel that had been yanked out of the machine. I held my breath until my chest ached. I turned slowly, ready to run. The cackling burst out again, right behind me. then above me. I looked up into the narrow shadow between the last row of seats in the wall, a wrong place for anyone to hide. The gap was small, just enough for a person to tuck their elbows, and inside it, a face lifted to me. He crouched like an audience member, leaning forward to see a secret. The light from the exit sign painted his cheekbones a sick green. His hair hung greasy against his temples. His smile was too wide, too patient, the kind you see in a photo of a stranger and forget the moment later. He had the face of someone who knew exactly how to wait. He raised his finger to his lips and breathed, "Shh." It was not a shushing to quiet the theater, but a promise. Then, as if turning a film reel, he shouted, "Boo!" The sound tore through me. I screamed. I turned and ran. He was faster than the gap should have allowed. Hands found my jacket and scraped fabric against bone. He missed, clinging to air like a spider missing a web. I stumbled down the aisle, elbows and knees scrabbling for purchase on cold metal and carpet. The exit doors were a breath away. I yanked them open and slammed them behind me. The burst of neon from the lobby briefly blinded me. Someone at the counter saw the way my face had gone white and the way I couldn't stop talking. An employee called the police. I sat on the lobby floor and tried to breathe until the world returned to something that had edges. When the police came back, they let a man in handcuffs. He screamed and laughed at once, a sound that made the hairs on my arms stand up. He had been living there, they told me later. The gaps between seats, the hush of films after closing. He smelled of grease and old soda. He had killed before 5 names in the kind of list that made the officer's mouth close differently. He'd been watching the empty rooms like a man who studies clocks, learning where people leave themselves vulnerable. I quit. 3 weeks later, I mailed in my uniform because keeping it in my room felt obscene, like leaving a memory on a shelf where someone could reach it. The town said the man would be locked up for a long time, and that was supposed to be the end, a neat cut between what happened and what comes next. But nights keep their own schedules. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I am back under the red glow of the exit sign, listening for the hum of a projector that will not come on. I hear a giggle, just a breath, as if someone remembered a joke and couldn't suppress it. And my palms go slick, my throat tight. I wake up and check the hallway, as if I might still push doors open and find a hollow where a face should be. The police said he was alone. The papers printed photographs of a man with a face that could go to court and pay taxes. I remember looking into the gap and seeing his smile like a film still that didn't belong to me. I remember he put a finger to his lips and told me to be quiet, as if he believed silence could keep us both safe from something worse. Sometimes, in a movie, the screen goes black and the credits roll, and you feel relief because the story is finished. Real life doesn't cut like that. The theater kept its screenings. People still bought popcorn at the counter where I used to stand. The smell is a little sharper now, a little guilt sour. I cross the street to avoid that row of lights once in a while. When I dream, it's in rows. When I wake, I count exits like prayers. I escaped him that night. That is the part I tell myself until sleep, until the dark, until the giggling.